Welcome to My View On, a series of podcasts where experts in the industry give their personal view on some of the big topics making waves in the media. All of the views are the experts' own, providing a fresh look at key issues facing the financial industry. Now, the Financial Advice Market Review has just been published, and with me to discuss the findings is Paul Speight from James Hay. Paul, welcome. First off, let's go back to basics here. What is the Financial Advice Market Review?
Well, during the course of last year, there was a call to input, which James Hay was certainly there to input into the changes that had certainly happened within the financial advice market, and then some of the challenges that had come forward, not least of which being how we closed this advice gap. And one of the aspects that the report itself was highlighting was that since the retail distribution review, we've seen some 10,000 advisors fall out of the advice market, predominantly from typically the banking sector, where they had withdrawn their advice services.
Okay, so what's your initial reaction then, Paul, to the review's findings?
Well, we were expecting to see perhaps a little more. Most of the commentators have been reasonably negative about the detail that's come through. Certainly from our point of view, there were a few areas that we would like to have seen some more detail on, not least of which financial education. So we have a advice gap. I think that's widely acknowledged. There are several ways you can close the advice gap, and the review was very much looking about how you did that. For us, I think it was education. Getting education into the marketplace would be a very, very good outcome and driving that forward. And there was not enough detail or indeed emphasis on making that happen. Let me give you an example. We have recently been out doing a series of masterclasses, and I was delighted to share the stage with First Actuarial, who look after employer schemes. And so much of what they talked about was being in the workplace, providing financial education to employees. And I think that's such a powerful message. And we would love to have seen far more about education come through in this review.
So should we be perhaps a little disappointed in the findings of the Financial Advice Market Review? It's sounding like it might be a bit of a damp squib.
Well, there were several aspects to the review that were certainly positive, if maybe not powerful enough. And I would probably put those into two further categories. So one of the aspects that it was dealing with was we've had this emergence of guidance. So PensionWise in particular was the government body that was set up to help following pension freedoms that were offering guidance rather than advice. Now, the advice market, as indeed acknowledged in this review, has matured significantly with a high level of qualification and professional competence being achieved. And I think I would be right in saying that most advisors would feel frustrated when a potential client or client would come through the door and say, I've had advice from PensionWise. No, you've had guidance. And I think if you then asked many of the clients, do you understand the difference between guidance and advice? They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know the difference. So one of the aspects they're going to look at is, what's it called? What do we call guidance? What do we call advice? Does that need reviewing? Do we need further categories? My hope would be at least we make it very clear to people, and it is a very big difference between receiving advice and guidance. The other aspect is around polluter pays. So for us, it's always been an issue that the current compensation scheme and the levies that are issued are generally sort of broad brush. And this has gone some way to saying, actually, if you engage in risky activities, then you should have a heavier burden for engaging in more risky financial products that are likely to have a detriment to the consumer. If they go wrong, the consumer acknowledges they're taking on a higher level of risk, but when they do go wrong, then the compensation scheme should reflect the fact, and the levy should reflect the fact that these firms have engaged in those activities and share a heavier burden.
Okay. Paul Speight from James Hay, thank you very much indeed.